lots of the people we've worked with in the teams. Myself, I've run a championship as well, so lots of areas that hopefully will be able to guide people when it comes to wanting to be a racing champion themselves. So, Damien, I suppose the question first off is, what makes a good motor racing champion, or what makes a champion?
Well, the way it's changed now is a champion race driver is not just someone who's good behind the wheel, but someone who's just good with media, with the way they present themselves, with the way they can attract and bring sponsors now to the team, because that's now something that has really moved into all levels of professional motor racing, not just the top flight Formula 1 categories. There was a time where if you're, say, top level of motorcycle racing, World Superbikes or GP racing even, the talent was good enough to get you there. Now it's about sponsorship and endorsements and what you can bring with you, and therefore how you can present that in a presentable manner to media and be a personable representative of the brands that you're going to help bring to the table. So it's, I would say probably about 40% is actually the skill behind the wheel or on the bike that makes a champion race driver these days.
Absolutely, I would 100% agree with that. So let's start with where people can find an avenue into motorsport, and let's just go over some of the different types of motorsport that there is. So we've got, I suppose we can split it into different categories in terms of off-road racing and on-road racing. So if you go over the on-road racing, and I'll look at some of the off-road categories.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at circuit racing, road racing, then you're looking at four-wheel and two-wheel. So obviously, the way to get into four-wheel circuit racing is through go-karting, the karts that we've got. We've got facilities at Jebel Ali, we've got facilities at Dubai, we've got facilities at Abu Dhabi where you can go race karts, and we've got facilities outside in Ras Al Khaimah and other places. So LA, there's lots of places where you can do that. Two-wheel also, there's effectively a version of go-karts for nippers if you want in two wheels. They are 50cc Grand Prix bikes that are built by Murawaki in Japan, based exactly like the Honda MotoGP bikes, but they're 50cc for kids up to about 13 years old. And that's a great way to get involved in two-wheel circuit racing as well. So they're the main ways to get into it. Go-karts, and it gives you, the key though is you have to start young. You have to start 7, 8, 9 years old, because that's when you're developing your balance, just as a person anyway. But so that's how you develop your motor neuron skills and your balance to be able to handle a motorcycle, stay upright, but also with the car, how to correct slides and just use that intuitive reaction to get into a slide, how to get out of a slide, and how to get the most out of it. And you learn so much at that age that by the time you step into a car at the age of 14, 15, you've got so much more experience than someone who just decides when they get their driver's license that they might have a crack at racing a bike or a car.
So that's the road side of things. When it comes to off-road racing, there is a slightly different format too. So if we look at rallying, for instance, we can do tarmac rallies, or we can do endurance rallies that are things like thinking about the ultimate of that being Dakar. So with Dakar you find a lot of very shaled, dirty surfaces, you find a lot of deep sand surfaces, and that's kind of one route. Now you could be on a bike, on a quad, you could be in a car, but you could also be in something like a Polaris, so a buggy as well. So there's actually 4 different areas that you'd find yourself when it comes to that sort of rallying. We've also got the tarmac rallies as well, so those cars will be more closely associated with the cars that you would see on the road, and of course they are just moved over to a rally surface. So different to what you would see in terms of, like, for instance, touring cars or Aussie V8s or something like that. This is something that's a bit more robust. It's going to go over slightly different sorts of terrain. As I said, we've also, on the rallying side of things, we've got 2 wheels as well. We can't forget things like motocross and supercross, which are different sizes of tracks, and then again moving over to the endurance rallying as well. Whereas in road racing or circuit racing, you have the ability to start at a very young age in the 50cc bikes, you certainly do have the opportunity opportunity with that in motocross, but you don't necessarily have the opportunity with that in cars as you would do in go-karts. That said, there is still the opportunity to ride a quad at a very young age, and there's some really good junior tracks. In fact, here in the United Arab Emirates, there's a number of tracks, but most predominantly at DMX, which is based down in Jebel Ali. So one of the things we have to think about is, are these associated with governing bodies, and are they regulated to make sure that they're safe? And they absolutely are, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so. And it all gets down to the licensing authorities to make sure that young people can get behind the wheel and get on the bike. And as you mentioned with rallying as well, I mean, that's another one. So tarmac rallying or dirt rallying is because rallying again is a different format of motor racing. It's a two-person operation. So if you can't drive the car, the navigator situation where you have to be very smart with your thinking, very quick with your thinking. You have to be good at maths. It's a totally different form of motorsport. And there are a lot of people who are professional navigators who have made very successful careers and world champions, and they've never stepped behind the wheel. So that is another option as well, where you can come through at a very young age. But yeah, it gets down to the licensing authorities to allow people to sort of get in at a younger age. Even in drag racing, you know, they got rail cars where kids as young as 10 and 13 can get behind the wheel of these little drag cars. They're powered by little motorcycle engines, and they do a 300-metre sprint down the runway, and it's just a great way to get into it. You know, it encourages the family participation as well. It's usually generated by the input and love of the family, so sort of get the kids into it, they love it. But yeah, but to answer your question, it gets back to the licensing authorities to make sure that you have these special licenses, special safety procedures. So obviously, you're not running the same specification vehicle. You're running a vehicle not only is it lower in horsepower, but also is increased in safety. There's other things. You look at the small carts, for instance. They have little rollover bars that the later ones don't. They have big bumper fenders that the big ones don't. So there are specific things tailored for younger people to get involved.
Yeah, and when we talk about licensing, it's not just licensing of a vehicle, or it's licensing also of the authority that runs that. So let's have a look how licensing works. Basically, if you are under the age of 16, you will be able to apply for a license, whether that's karting, motocross, that's it basically, isn't it, karting or motocross. When you apply for that license, you do not have to sit a test. However, when you get a little bit older, you will then have to apply for a license in a different means. That means you have to complete a medical to make sure that you're medically fit to race, and you'll also have to sit a written test. Sometimes there are cases that you also have to sit a race license test as well, and that's not judging you on how quick you are, that's actually judging you on how aware you are of the situations that are going on around you, because we all know competitive sport, wherever you are, you have to be as aware of other people around you as you are of yourself.
Yeah, and a great example, I mean, the way I got into it, for example, which is probably the best way to describe it, is that we had just a motor car club, a touring car club. It was the Alfa Romeo brand. We just went for weekends and drives in the country and all that sort of thing. They also have a motor racing side of it as well. But what they instigated was what they call a junior driver development program, and this is for children of 12 years old to drive their mum and dad's car, their Alfa Romeo, at the club events. So they'd hire a motor racing circuit. They got the license, as you say, the license that's issued by the Australian authority at the time, but it wasn't high-speed competition. So it used a motor racing facility simply because it's the safest place to do it. But it was all about skill and reflexes. So there's a lot of things like cones marked out on the grass area, and it was about controlling the car at a slow speed, but still being competitive and using your navigational skills and all that sort of thing. When we started this, and we saw these kids who were friends of ours and sons and daughters of friends of ours get into it, and because they had been involved in the car club culture since they were this big, and then they get the chance to get behind the wheel, we were guiding them and teaching them and all that sort of thing. They've now come through, they've now developed their own careers. Some are professional racing drivers, some are working, in fact there are two that are working at the top level in Formula One at the moment as engineers and mechanics for the Renault team and one or two others. So it's something that really influenced them and carried them a long way. But it was an initiative that we sort of picked up at a car club level. It was endorsed by the sanctioning body in terms of just having that basic license to start with. And then it goes on from there. So by the time they're 14, 15, they're too old to do this. But then they're only 12 months away from actually competing in a car on track anyway.
Let's talk about some of the kind of obvious characters.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ignition Live show here at the Dubai Motor Show. We're having a talk, we're in the middle of a talk right now about how you can be a racing driver. How many of you out there think you can drive? No, I mean really drive. Drive on the track, race to compete, race to win. In this part of the hall, we've got several stands. We've got the Auto Club over there, we've got Automobile Touring Club over here. On the stage right now, we've got professional motoring journalists and motorsports journalists who can tell you all about how you can get into this, how you can actually become a racing driver, how you can line your cabinet with trophies. And hosting today is Alex Campamerdo, who is a race instructor. She actually teaches people how to do this sort of stuff. So come along, guys, come on. Anybody out there that thinks they can drive better than Alex Campamerdo, I'd like to see them. Come in here, have a little sit down, and listen to these guys and find out how you can become a racing champion.
Thank you very much, Shazad. And yes, welcome along. We're going to be talking about how to become a motor racing champion. As Shazad said, we've got right next door Dubai Autodrome, who, in fact, that's a facility that both myself and Damien know very, very well. Let's have a look at some of the competitors that are very obvious that we've heard about them. I mean, famous racing drivers, but we know where they've started. I'm thinking, you know, the likes of Marc Marquez in MotoGP. Everybody had heard of Marc Marquez before he got to MotoGP. He was an ex-Red Bull 250 winner. He'd come up through the ranks and been doing really well. Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is an obvious one. Everybody knows that McLaren looked at Lewis Hamilton and took him on board when he was just a youngster in karting. How many more of these can you think of?
Many numbers. I mean, I was back in Australia when I was doing commentating and working back there. I was extremely lucky to work with Barry Sheen, and who's a multiple world champion motorcycles. And he was coming through in his era. He was racing with the guy, which you recognise the surname, Graziano Rossi. And Graziano, of course, had his little boy, was Valentino. And Valentino was probably 4 years old and started in go-karts at a four-wheel, quickly switched to two-wheel, and of course look where he is now. You know, he's come through, and it's that breeding ground right from the start. But there are, I mean, there's so many others. You look at the second generation, third generation of drivers now competing in Formula One and IndyCar. Look at the names like in America, the Unzas, the Andrettis. It goes through. So there's a big culture, of passing it down through the limit. Reigning world champion right now until after Abu Dhabi next week is Nico Rosberg, the son of Keke Rosberg. Lewis Hamilton came through from the karts and almost before they can walk, and that's probably one of the key things, is getting in from straight away. And they're still going through the junior formula. I mean, I was lucky enough to interview Lewis earlier this year, and we were talking about those early days, and he doesn't. Contrary to what a lot of people think about Formula One now and the way you get into it, he didn't have money. He didn't come through it from money. And he was saying that he was actually inspired to get his collection of cars now because he was teammates with Nico Rosberg when they were 5 and 6 years old. And of course, Nico's dad, Keke, was a world champion. And he turned up in Lamborghinis and Countachs and all this sort of thing. And Lewis was saying, well, Dad turned up in his Ford Fiesta with the car towing down the back. And that's the thing. But it's that passion to get them there and then getting them into that junior formula. And then, of course, that opens the doors. That opens the fact, Lewis's dad met Keke Rosberg and he started a race with my boy. And suddenly things, and then Lewis made a very brave call to get in touch with Ron Dennis, the boss of McLaren, when he was about 10 years old. He said, I want to race for you one day. But he had that opportunity because he was in the karting scene by that stage.
Of course, the great news is if you do want to be a motor racing champion, you do not have to start at the age of 5 or 6. There are many championships around the world that have been won by people who didn't start or get into motor racing until they were over the age of 40. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be Formula 1 or MotoGP, but even in this region here, we have seen numerous local champions of both rallying and circuit racing who didn't even get involved until a later age. So there is hope for you yet, Shazad, do not worry. For those people, what would you suggest, Amy? Because you've done a lot of competition yourself, and a lot of that has come off the back of being editor of F1 Racing magazine, Autocar, and having a general interest in motor racing itself.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to establish myself in the UAE just as the circuit racing scene was coming on board. The Dubai Autodrome opened in 2004, and I was here pretty much straight from then. And so the opportunities then to get involved was, it was very simple to get involved back then. And so we ran the one-make series for the VW Golf GTIs for a couple of years, and then they brought the radical cars came on board as well. And it was a chance for some people who'd never raced before, and these guys who are in their 20s and 30s, or probably 20s back then, who are now in their late 30s, who are racing competitively overseas. And I can think just off the top of my head, I'm thinking people like Jordan Groger, who's raced a competitive historic Formula 1 car at the Monaco Historics, and has raced sports cars. We're looking at Khalid Al-Muddaf from Kuwait, who's raced in Le Mans prototype cars. We're looking at Hashim Al-Maktoum, who's raced in the Nürburgring 24-hour. You know, these are guys who are in their mid to late 20s at the time, who have now made successful careers as Pro-Am drivers in World Championship racing.
And I think that's where the Pro-Am category, especially in things like the World Endurance Championship, Blancpain, they have opened up to a whole new generation, because never before were you able to compete with professional drivers at that sort of level. So yes, Le Mans is kind of the end of the road sort of thing, or the top tier that you really are going to be very ambitious and wanting to achieve. But you know, I have friends personally that are exactly the same. 19-year-old kids that have won championships in single-seaters like F3 or Formula Renault, and they pair up with a 45, 50-year-old gentleman driver who covers the AM category. Pro-Am meaning that you have to have one professional driver and one amateur driver in the same car.
Yeah, and I think we're lucky in this region in the fact that when these circuits opened, and Yas Marina circuit opened in 2009, that we're lucky that we developed good categories of racing to encourage the professional amateur driver, if you want to put it that way. And that is, we have things like for instance, the Dubai 24-hour race is probably the biggest you can go as an amateur driver. So you can get into a Renault Clio, which they run at the Autodrome. You can get into one for 100,000 dirhams or so, and you can race that thing competitively. I was talking to a guy here who runs a car company, and he races the Renault Clio in his spare time. And he said to me the other day, he said, we've decided we're going to enter the 24-hour race in January, and we'll do that because it's the same license. And they're going to be competing against top-name international drivers. You know, it's a 98-car grid, it's an enormous grid, but it gives you that exposure, it gives you then the international points on your license, and once you compete in the Dubai 24-hour, then you do then have the Golf 12-hour in Abu Dhabi, it's the same points on that license as well. That gives you enough points then to perhaps go and do the Nürburgring 24-hour, the Spa 24-hour. They're the same cars, same classes, same categories. And that's how these other guys got into it, and they've got their international licenses.
We're very lucky in this region that there are a number of World Championship events that are hosted here. Ones that, as Damien was saying, you do not necessarily have to have had 10 years of experience in motorsport. We've got the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, formerly the Dubai Desert Challenge, which is part of the World Cross Countries rallies. And there's some huge names in there. You know, Peter Hansel, Carlos Sainz, Mark Coma, local hero and 2 times Dakar champion now, Sam Sunderland. I mean, these are people who have started in in racing championships that are thought of as being, you know, to most people the other side of the world, a very club racing environment, but have achieved so much.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Sunderland is a great example. You know him quite well, and better than I do. But Sam is a guy who came here and got into the two-wheel desert racing, and won his class in the Dakar, which is remarkable. Then you've got other guys. Say Carlos Sainz was here a few years ago. Johan Kankkunen was also here a few years ago. It's an incredible path. And then you look at the way that's gone. But you look at the circuit side as well, and I think arguably the biggest name now that's made it to the top would be Ed Jones, who started literally in the karts at Jebel Ali, moved on to the karts at the Dubai Autodrome. He's just signed up with the biggest team in American auto racing, the Jim Ganassi Racing, and he is a genuine contender this next year to win the IndyCar World IndyCar Series and the Indy 500. He came third this year in his debut year. He beat Fernando Alonso, two-time Formula One World Champion, who was also a rookie. And this is, he cut his teeth here. He went through the junior formula here. That was enough to carry him over to do the British Formula 3. Won that straight away, and then went to Indy Lights. Carried a little bit of sponsorship from the region as well, which is fantastic to see. And he is now one of the top American drivers in the American Series to look out for.
I'm kind of chuckling because what gets me about Ed is he was the quietest kid that we knew. I mean, genuinely trying to get Ed to chat at a table at dinner was like phenomenal.
That's now paid off for him because when I was talking to Ganassi and the guys from the team there about this, I was also talking to Dale Coyne, who was his team boss for this year in the IndyCar Series earlier on, and both of the guys said the thing that attracted them to signing up Ed Jones for both seasons compared to some much bigger names that were going into it. Brendan Hartley, for instance, was who was the Toro Rosso Formula One driver, now was the guy that was going to take the Ganassi seat. And now Ed's got it. The reason why, or one of the reasons why Ed got it, was because of his personal manner. The fact that there's no trash talk over the radio, and both Jim and Dale Coyne said, we listen to all this, we know our sponsors are listening, and if you get trash talk over the radio that gets broadcast around the circuit and on TV, they said, we don't like that. It gets us coverage, but it's not the coverage we like. We also get things like, you've got to have guys who are good with their engineers and are just presentable, good media people. And of course, Ed was very quiet and shy and everything when he was growing up here as a young teenager. But that's matured into a very, very marketable media personality.
And you're right, he's such a nice kid as well, isn't he? I mean, we've had many dealings with him over the years. Talking about racing champions then, there's people obviously competing down at the stage beside us. Do you think there's a personality trait that makes a racing champion?
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, competitive in everything. And that's just something that's just innate in all these guys. They might come across as quiet and shy and retiring sometimes. Other times they're not. But the competitive streak in every single thing. You might go to dinner with them and they'll have an extra slice of something because you've had this, or you'll get in the car. They'll go to the gas station. They'll fill their car up 5 seconds faster than you did and hang up. It's just one of these things that you can't describe.
It's amazing, isn't it, that absolutely everything turns into a game. What about, when we look at, let's say, Formula One, I always feel very sorry for the young men, and it is predominantly men. I know there's been a couple of girls, and there's a girl doing quite well in GP3 at the moment, and also F3, and obviously we had Susie Stoddart and now Susie Wolf doing some F1 testing, but most of the guys have spent their entire lives at a very young age aiming for one thing. And if that doesn't happen for them, or even the ones that, we know people that have made it to Formula One and have spent one season hoping that they will be able to stay in F1 and they're gone and they're almost forgotten about. What happens to their lives at that point? Because if you've been training from the age of 5 or 6 to make it to Formula One and you get there and then it's gone, what happens after that? Think, actually, Jaime Algafari, the Spanish driver who came in, who bypassed GP2, he went straight from F3 into F1, did a season, did a second season, doesn't even get in a car anymore.
Yeah, it's a cutthroat world. In fact, it's funny you should mention that. I was reminded of some footage today
from the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix winter tyre, off-season tyre testing for junior drivers in 2010 when we were there, and I'm looking at the people who are there, and I think out of all the teams, there's probably only 2 names that are still around now, and these are guys that made it as far as getting into an F1 car and have kind of dropped away. Sam Bird was in the Mercedes car at the time, the World Championship winning car. So you know, there's a lot of people. Jean-Eric Verne was in the Red Bull car testing. So you know, these are
Jean-Eric Verne, Charles Pic. There was even the guys who made it for a couple of years, Bruno Senna, Carter Kane.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, they just disappeared, don't they?
And the thing is that another track that they all have, which they all admit to, and it's just the way they are, is
Top models as girlfriends.
That eventually follows along, is selfishness. And that is something that they don't deny. They have to be. Their entire world revolves around them. So insofar as everything they do, their fitness, their diet, their social life, every single thing focuses around making sure they make the weight limit to get in the car for next weekend, and then onwards and after that. So their life changes enormously. The whole party scene you usually see is a bit of a myth. It's usually 9 times out of 10, it's usually a sponsor commitment that they don't want to be at, but they have to do it to, and all the snaps of these guys at nightclubs and everything else, that's usually done at about 9 PM, and they're off home in bed by 10, you know, because they're so focused on that. And it's the same with the bike guys. You have everyone works around their ambition. That's it.
There are a couple of names that I can think of, and very, very few where people genuinely say that's a really nice guy. Ed Jones being one of them, Jenson Button being another. Lots of people always talk about Valentino Rossi being such a really nice guy, and not somebody that I've met, but I think you have. And what is it about them? Is it a different trigger, a different switch, or they still have that same drive to win and be the best?
They still have an enormous drive to win and be a success. And Jensen is a classic example. Mark Webber is another great example. Is that they're decent, nice guys, but they're incredibly competitive. I mean, you look at Jensen now has stepped away from motor racing and he's retired. He's retired from Formula 1, but he wants to have a crack at some other category next year, whether it be GT or something in the US perhaps. But he's transferred that competitiveness from being behind the wheel to being a triathlete, and he is now one of the top 10 triathletes in the world. He relocated to Hawaii for a while there, set up a camp there. He has his triathlete team around him now. And he's transferred that competitive nature to another category of sport. And you find that with a lot of retired drivers and motorcycle riders, they do a similar thing. They move it into a business in some sphere. David Coulthard opened a hotel in Monaco. It instantly became the top hotel in Monaco, which he ran for a number of years. They have sports management companies where they coach and train other competitors to come through. So these guys remain incredibly flexible. Michael Doohan is probably the best example I can think of, and I've been fortunate to work with him in both his categories of employment now. I worked with him when he was a 5-time world MotoGP champion, but now he's working in private aviation. And when I was doing some private aviation work a few years ago, he's now the #1 Bombardier service dealer in the southern hemisphere. He sells helicopters, he maintains and charters jets, and he's so focused on that that's now the bulk of his income comes from his private aviation, and not all the millions that he made as a motorcycle world champion.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? And then name after name after name, it's the same sort of personality. You're absolutely right. Of course, there are lots of other ways of being involved in motorsport, not just in terms of being a driver or a rider or a competitor. And I think more so we're seeing a lot of people, certainly in the kind of volunteer area as well. Do you think that's important? I mean, let's be absolutely honest. I have not watched a single F1 race all year. And the reason I'm admitting to that is partially because I'm slightly scared because I will be in race control next week for F1. But because I feel that people are moving away from this twists and turns in motorsport. But, you know, is it really competitive anymore? Has it got to a point where we're kind of losing these characters, these champions, that we used to love so much. I mean, you know, we've spoken about it many times. Days gone by in motorsport, it was what you were following was the person. You followed the person, not the team, and whatever team they went to, you followed that person because they were amazing characters. Do you think we still get that, or it's kind of being overshadowed by the technology?
No, I think we're still getting, the characters are certainly there, but the demands now on the commercial side of the world changes the way they can behave and carry on. So they have to be a little more responsible now, and because, as I say, at the start of this, when motorcycle riders in MotoGP and World Superbikes could get a job as a top-level rider based purely on their talent, they didn't need to bring a bucket of money with them. That's now changed, of course. So when you bring the bucket of money with you, you also are now representing those brands, and so that's changed things quite a lot. And these guys, yeah, I mean, you've got great personalities. You look at, I mean, even, you know, Kimi Räikkönen's a great personality. You look at Jensen's a good personality. Danny Ricciardo is probably the best thing that happened to Formula One as a personality this year. But they're at that stage where they're now very professional in the way they have to represent their brands. But as you say, there's so many ways to get into that level now. It's not just being a driver. There's so many other ways you can get into it. We are at the top level as world champions, whether it be engineering or marketing or, you know, electronics.
I was going to say, do you know what's so different in motor racing, especially in the last 10 years, is that previously you had to be a good driver or a good rider, then you had to be a good driver or rider and have some sort of sponsorship backing. Now you need to be a good driver, a good rider, have some sponsorship and some money, be on a driver development program, understand social media, marketing, PR, and technology all at the same time. I mean, it's, you know, it's big business, isn't it? If you think about it, Lewis Hamilton could finish number 10 in every race over a year, and he would still get more social media interaction than Vettel would any other day of the week.
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned those two people, because Lewis has made a very concerted effort to keep his social media presence high, and he's said that a few times that he's thinking of a career beyond Formula One. He knows that it's a short career. We'll probably see him for maybe 2 years, and then he might move on. He wants to move into the music scene and set himself up in the US. But Sebastian is the other way. He has no social media presence at all. He's completely white. He doesn't. He's made a conscious effort not to get onto Instagram, not get onto Facebook, not to even get on Twitter, none of that. So he doesn't exist on social media. But he's a much more reserved person and away from that. So this is another thing that these guys have to be very careful about, how they present themselves, because, you know, social media just opens up a whole new world in terms of, you know, you're representing these brands and these teams and you're hundreds of millions of dollars worth of sponsorships on behalf of the company, and yet there's no filter. So whatever you do goes straight out there, and a few of them have been caught out by that. A few of them have had their accounts revoked by the teams and reissued under certain instructions. But, you know, these are things that have to be, and it goes back to what you're saying about the characters. And the characters, you can't afford anymore for these characters to go out and have late nights and go partying and all this sort of thing, because your sponsors may not want that to be publicised. And if you've got social media, you've got Instagram, you've got Twitter, you bypass the normal methods and checks of PR people and media minders, and it goes straight out there. So that's another thing. Now these guys have to think about this. And, you know, to be honest, the way the competition is now, you have to be so incredibly physically fit now. There was some footage that Mark Webber put up the other day, and this was only 2 years ago. He was on the podium at a race, a Formula One race, and he was saying, there's no way I could do that now. And physically, when you see the guy now, he looks the same as he was, maybe even a little bit thinner. But he says, no, I'm out of form. You know, these guys are race horses. You know, they're so focused on it. So, you know, you have to be so in tune with the way you present yourself and your physical fitness.
Thinking about it, do you think that there's not enough space within the industry for people with disabilities? You know, we look at the Olympics worldwide, and the Paralympics is followed as much, if not more sometimes, and certainly in some countries, than the Olympics are the Standard Olympics. Does this mean that you cannot be a champion in motorsport if you are not 100% physically fit from your eyesight to your ability to run a marathon?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very tricky one to answer. There's you have to be fit. You have to be fit, obviously mentally. You have to have your eyesight. You have to have your aerobic fitness for sure. But then we've seen people who have been involved in accidents and people who have come back and they're racing without limbs and doing very well. Alex Zanardi is the classic example. Alex lost both his legs, almost died in a horrific IndyCar accident. He came back with prosthetic limbs and went out and won the World Touring Car Championship. We're using specially adapted steering wheel controls for the gears and the accelerator and the brakes all in one thing. Now there's another amazingly inspirational guy, and he's an amateur driver, but it's just something that just sticks in my head. And he's a guy who raced in the Le Mans 24-hour this year, and he picked up a particular disease. He's a quadriplegic. He has prosthetic limbs, arms and legs. And this is a guy, they especially adapted an open cockpit car, so a bit like a radical kind of car, an open cockpit car, with an overhead gantry, a bit like these lights here, where he was hoisted into the car with no limbs, and his knees were plugged into prosthetic things, and it worked off the sensors, the neurological sensors that go through the arms and legs, and he finished the race. It was a 24-hour race with his able-bodied co-drivers. So the car was modified when they came in. Their pit stops were a little bit longer, but he finished the race. The team finished the race, and they went on. So so there's definitely room for racing for people who are impaired. But you've got to have the certain things there. So you've got to have the aerobic strength. You've got to have preferably neck strength because of the helmets and the G-forces, and you've got to have the mental strength to be able to make snap reactions.
So basically what that says is anybody can be a racing champion, whether you want to go down the route of single-seaters all the way up to Formula 1, whether you aspire to be a MotoGP rider, perhaps you want to go into rallying, motocross, or even some of the local championships like EDC and local drive championships at both Dubai Autodrome and Yas Marina Circuit. Really, anybody can be a champion from the age of, what does Bambino start at, 5, 6?
Yeah, Bambino start about 5 or 6 years old. Motorcycles, you can get onto the little, let's say the GP50s, the Morowantis from about 8 years old, I think, as sort of standalone two-wheel vehicles. Pretty much you get straight away. I mean, if you can walk, you can jump into a go-kart or,
And even nowadays, they've just pushed the level for the seniors category on off-road racing in motocross to 45 and above, because 40-year-olds were just too competitive.
Well, that's the best news I've heard today. That's great.
Right. So you too, Damien, when you get to 40, you can start competing in the senior level.
Just one day and keep going.
Yes. Listen, thank you very much for that. We just have to say, if there's any questions from the floor, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. We do, of course, have plenty more talks coming up right through the weekend. Don't forget Thursday night now, so it's going to start getting busier again later on. But great tech talks earlier on today. If you want to have a look and see what we were speaking about, please do check out the social media pages, not only for the Dubai International Motor Show, but also for Motoring Middle East. And later on today, we've got how to make a fortune on classic cars. That is one I am definitely going to be finding out about. Don't think about classics that you have to spend a fortune on in the first place. You may have a classic just now and you don't even know it. So if you want to know how to make a fortune on your car, then stick around. That'll be coming up from 7 o'clock with Imtishan. And then at 8 o'clock, don't be boring, only drive cool cars. Do you own a cool car? I hope you do. Maybe you own a few of them. Damien, do you own a cool car? You own some really cool cars in your time.
I don't own them, I just borrow them.
You just borrow them. I think that's what we all do. Listen guys, thank you very much for joining us. This is Ignition Live. We'll be here all the way through until 9 o'clock this evening.